Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to another edition of Bao News Network. I'm Wade, your commentator. I'd like to thank you so much for tuning in to this next episode of our economic relief episodes that we actually focus on economic relief for Americans. And the focus of this episode is to actually try and pinpoint exactly when the next stimulus check will be going out. So we're actually talking about the third stimulus check. And if you would actually believe the $600 stimulus checks that were signed into law on December 27th by our former President Trump, in many cases are just now getting out to the American people by paper check. A majority of people who had direct deposits set up through their previous tax filings actually possibly received it within the first week of January. Some people actually reported receiving it as early as December 31st, with a posting to be released on the 4th of January. So that is actually where we stand with the second checks. Now, the third stimulus check, we're actually taking a closer look at to see exactly when the American people actually get relief. Now, keep in mind, we are working on going into month of February, which is another month of rent that is actually due. A majority of Americans are cash strapped right now with this pandemic, and we actually saw it for the first time in 7 months, a significant loss of jobs in the month of December. So we are seeing and witnessing a contraction of the American economy right before our eyes, and it will be interesting to see how our elected officials and lawmakers are actually responding to this situation. So before we actually get into when we actually will see possibly and predict the $1,400 or perhaps $2,000 stimulus checks being sent out to the American people in a third round, please like, share, and subscribe to this video. And we are actually going to be taking a daily look and monitoring all of the different outlets of news and social media to get an idea with some predictability as far as when the American people can look for their $1,400 stimulus check, or perhaps even a $2,000 stimulus check, or perhaps a recurring round of stimulus checks throughout 2021. So there are a lot of different options on the table, but we have to take a look at all the different factors. So like, share, and subscribe. We do appreciate here at Bao News Network. So as we get into actually taking a look at the expectations of when you can receive your $1,400 stimulus check, or perhaps $2,000 stimulus check, we need to take a look at why possibilities of delays exist. And when we take a look at the possibilities of delays, we're actually taking a look at three possibilities. Now, because of the pandemic and our newly inaugurated President Biden, he has a lot of it on his plate, and he has actually stepped up to the plate very, very well with a lot of different executive orders, particularly in addressing the situation and the crisis of millions of Americans who are now facing food insecurity, also facing loss of job, facing a lot of different pandemic-related issues. And the most important one that is on the table right now is to try and get this situation with our health crisis under control. The other issue that may cause delays is the impeachment process, and that is going to be putting a kink in the possibility of getting either a standalone bill of $1,400 sent out to all eligible Americans as soon as possible, or a round of $2,000 checks. So we don't anticipate, based on these delays, as far as checks going out possibly after the earliest days of the 2020 tax return filing, which is going to be February 12th. So we're still looking at another 2 weeks possible, with next week starting a brand new month as far as rent is due. And this is a crisis situation for millions of Americans across the country. Now, keep in mind that billions of dollars have been sent out as far as rental assistance, but we're possibly only talking about $25 billion. And right now, based on what the economists are saying, a quarter of the renters out in the United States are behind to the tune of possibly $75 billion. So there may have to be quite possibly another round of rental relief that will actually have to go out. So this is going to be another source of economic relief that we're going to have to track, what we'll be tracking for you and bringing you the latest information. The other thing that we want to let you know when we're talking about the $1,400 stimulus check is that if we take a look at what was sent out on the first check as well as the second check, quite a number of people were left out. So they are anticipating that this round of stimulus, $1,400 or a $2,000 check, which is being pushed by the progressives, will actually be targeted a lot more to low income as well as middle class Americans. Because simply put, they have actually done a survey, and that survey has shown that if a family household is earning $78,000 a year or more, they are actually taking their stimulus checks and possibly just simply saving it or possibly investing it in the stock market. Whereas anyone who is under, let's say, $75,000 as a household, let's say a family of 2 adults and 2 children making $75,000 or less, considered to be possibly upper middle class, they're actually using whatever stimulus money that they're receiving to actually apply towards rent and utilities and food and so forth. We are actually in a desperate age right now because there are millions of people who are actually having to go to food banks and in an event that they have never actually had to succumb to before. And of course, for many people, they state that it's an attack on their, not only their self-esteem, but also their self-worth and their dignity to be in this position. Many people brought to tears that they're actually having to go to a food bank for the very, very first time. It's just a significant loss of control for many people across this great country. And for the amount of wealth that is actually here in the United States, food insecurity, especially for young children, should not be there. It should not exist. So as we go forward, we're actually taking a look at exactly when we anticipate, and that is the main focus of this episode, when we possibly anticipate, based on all the information provided right now, when your $1,400 stimulus check will go out. We anticipate that there will be negotiations throughout the month of February, but you should not anticipate receiving any kind of third stimulus until possibly the third week of February into early March. And that is the reality of it also. The other reality that we're dealing with right now is we don't anticipate that there will be any age limits for the next round. Because if you do remember that dependents had to be 16 and younger for the previous stimulus checks, so they're anticipating that more dependents of eligible recipients will be able to receive stimulus this time around. Perhaps college students 23 years and younger will be able to receive some type of stimulus check. So we anticipate that based on the current balance of power in Congress, with slim margins of control for the Democratic Party for the Senate, we anticipate that stimulus checks will be going out possibly, and we do anticipate that there's possibly a 70 to 80% chance of a stimulus package, some type of stimulus package in a range of 1.1 trillion to 1.3 trillion actually being completed towards the third week of February to the early part of March. So that is actually where we stand. Right now there are a lot of issues on the plate for the president, and we do see that he has been executing quite a number of executive orders in an effort to prevent the scarring of this American economy. Because if we can actually witness what happened in December with the loss of jobs and the lack of creation of any jobs in December of 2020, do keep in mind that many jobs are created in the month of December with respect to service sector as well as retail. But we actually had a significant loss of jobs, and we're still down by possibly 10 million jobs that have been lost since the pre-pandemic level. So we are actually still in a pretty heavy situation, and they have to actually take significant action. It is recommended by the majority of the economists, whether it's our current Treasury Secretary, Janet Yellen, or Powell, or any of the other major economists are recommending that we need to have a strong stimulus package for the third round, with possibly reoccurring to the very, very low income, so-called disproportionately essential workers who have been impacted by the pandemic. So if we actually take a look at possibly reoccurring payments, if you keep in mind that many of the progressives are pushing that there's a slim chance of it actually going through, though, that $2,000 checks will be sent out on a recurring basis for the very, very low income Americans as well as middle class. But we are actually seeing that possibly there's a good chance of additional $1,400 stimulus checks going out towards the latter part of February, early March, and more people will be eligible, such as college students, perhaps even disabled adults, and other classes of people who may have been left out by the first and the second stimulus check. So as we go forward, it's very important for us to take a look at some latest developments. So if we were to take a closer look strictly by numbers, the impact of Americans receiving a third $1,400 stimulus check, we'll actually see that numbers actually work in the favor of the American economy. Now, it's estimated that the American economy contracted by about 3.5% for 2020, and this is a significant contraction. And we haven't witnessed this type of contraction in about over 70 years, and we're talking about World War II. So if you were to see and witness, if you're actually seeing and witnessing what's actually happening, we are at war. We are at war with an unseen killer, and that is our pandemic, with the situation, the health crisis facing not only the United States but the world. And there's going to be a significant ripple effect of any kind of stimulus package, whether it's small or large, here in the United States, throughout the world, because the world is actually relying on the strength of the US dollar. And without the most appropriate steps taken by Congress to prevent the scarring of the American economy, we could significantly see ripple effects throughout the globe as far as what's going to be taking place as far as economic relief, whether it's here in the United States or the rest of the world. But getting back to the numbers, if we actually saw a contraction of 3.5% of the American economy for 2020, then if we actually take a look at possible remedies, if a $1,400 stimulus check was actually targeted to low-income Americans as well as the middle class, we could actually see a 1% increase in GDP within only a few months of that money being distributed to the American people. If we also take a look at possibly increasing the minimum wage to $15 an hour, and right now it hasn't changed since 2009. So there are all these different factors that are going to be preventing the scarring of the American economy. We are well into this pandemic, and we can actually see a lot of the different effects, the ripple effects. A lot of businesses that were trying to hang on with all of these stay-in-place orders and the different phases of lockdowns across the country, many businesses were able to keep alive, hoping to have some kind of resurrection during the holiday season. And for many of them, it didn't appear. So what will actually happen is many of these businesses will simply disappear permanently without any kind of possibility of actually returning. And that's going to mean that there's going to be a significant class of long-term unemployed people for quite some time. And this is going to have a significant scarring effect on the American economy, not only in the sense of tax revenue, but also simple everyday transactions at your local grocer and supermarket. Those will actually see reduction in revenue also, because simply people are making choices today whether adults will actually be able to eat twice a week for the sake of allowing their children to actually have a daily meal. So these are the choices that are being made by everyday Americans, and our lawmakers Many of them are newly sworn in, newly inaugurated. We have to keep them in check, and also we have to make sure we keep them accountable and let them know simply by picking up the phone and getting into good trouble, by letting them know exactly what the status is for a majority of Americans out there. So this is a very, very important issue. So as we take a closer look, also we have to take a look at what's going to happen with expanded unemployment compensation, which is set to run out in mid-March. Are these lawmakers going to allow all of these unemployed people across the country, many of whom want to go back to work, many of whom want to earn their own daily pay, many of whom want to know, are these lawmakers going to allow them to fall off the cliff come mid-March, like the event that happened in end of July 2020, when the federal booster that was attached to the CARES Act for $600 a week, when that ran out. So are you going to allow all of these unemployed people who are using the extra $300 a week on top of their regular state or federal unemployment to actually fall off the cliff and actually enter into another state of desperation? And do keep in mind, it's only been recently, possibly in the last week, that many of the states have actually been able to start getting these weekly extra $300 a week payments out to the American people who are unemployed. And what about the class of long-term unemployed? And what about the class of unemployed people who have actually fallen off the grid? They're simply just not they're not claiming benefits, and they're not seeking work, many of whom have actually had to consolidate their livelihood by moving back in with family. So you now have 30-year-old and 40-year-old people who are now living in the basement of their elderly parents simply because they can't make ends meet. So these are issues that the lawmakers need to address if we're to prevent scarring of the American economy. So as we take a look at what is needed to go forward, now as far as going forward for the comprehensive third package, we anticipate that there's a 80% chance of possibly a $1.2 trillion package. We don't believe here at Bow News Network that there'll be a $1.9 trillion trillion dollar package that will be passed. A lot of senators, Republican senators, are pretty much not backing such what's termed as a fiscal irresponsibility act of passing such an expensive package, but they are looking at more targeting. There's even resistance among Democratic senators, and in order for any kind of bill to pass with a very slim majority in the Senate, with we would need at least all 50 of the Democratic senators and at least 10 Republican senators to actually pass the bill without and overcome any kind of filibuster. There is also an opportunity of using budget reconciliation, which is actually a parliamentary move, and that will actually allow to get a majority vote going forward. But it may pose delays as far as getting the package passed. So there are two methods, actually relying on the 50-10 split or budget reconciliation to try and get the package through. Now the important thing here is that I did mention the minimum $15 minimum wage across the board. Now keep in mind that we've been talking about a federal minimum wage in a $7 range for years and years, over 10 years now. And if we take a look at any typical city, if I were to take a look at any typical city, let's take the city of Miami, where the minimum wage at this time is $8.46 per hour. Now, if you take a look at the minimum wage in Miami and consider that to rent a one-bedroom apartment in the city of Miami, and keep in mind too, rents are probably going to go up because so many people are moving in to Miami from California, New York City. So you should anticipate that the rents will actually escalate anywhere from $1,200 to $1,400 per month just for a one-bedroom apartment. Now, how is someone earning let's say hypothetically, between $9 and $10 an hour, above the minimum wage of the city of Miami, supposed to actually be able to afford on their own an apartment and for $1,200 a month, or even $1,400 a month. If let's say hypothetically also, if you're a four-person family, you can expect to pay at least $3,700 a month just to have a decent two-bedroom apartment or two-bedroom house in the city of Miami, and be able to be able to cover utilities and also expenses of maintaining your family. So if we use Miami as just a typical city in good old USA, the situation as far as raising the federal minimum wage is a very, very important topic going forward. And it's definitely been pushed by Bernie Sanders. It's definitely been pushed by many of the progressives. So this is another issue that has to be addressed by lawmakers. And I would like to see those lawmakers who have been sworn in, who actually use these use the $15 minimum wage as a promise to the American people, that if they were sworn in and they gained office, that this will be a topic that actually they will take up on behalf of the American people to improve the quality of the American people. So if taking this episode, we've actually taken a good look at the numbers. What does it mean to the American economy if we actually sent out $1,400 stimulus checks? We have seen a contraction of 2020. 3.5% is a significant contraction of the American economy, but it can be remedied. So if we were to take a look strictly on the issue of numbers, sending out stimulus checks between $1,400 to $2,000 is going to help the GDP. Increasing minimum wage to $15 per hour will increase the GDP for 2021. Also, sending out aid on localities, city localities as well as states, will increase GDP. And all of these increases to the GDP will actually prevent long-term scarring, which is going to be felt throughout the entire globe. So we're actually taking a closer look at the situation here at Bow News Network. Please like, share, and subscribe, where we actually break down the numbers for you, the impact, and we hope that we'll be able to get some more information as far as when the $1,400 stimulus checks or $2,000 stimulus checks, or perhaps reoccurring $2,000 stimulus checks, which is being pushed by the progressives, will actually be sent out. And as we get this information, we'll actually bring it to you as soon as possible. So thank you so much for watching Bow News Network. And please look towards our next episode, when we'll actually bring some more information about rental relief, economic relief checks, and much more regarding bringing back the American economy and bring us back to our former prowess prior to the pandemic. So thank you for watching Bow News Network. Have a great day. Thank you.